Let's see. And there we go. And there's Carrie in the Pal Talk room. Happy birthday, brother. Yesterday was Carrie's birthday, the 24th. So 2 days ago was Carrie's birthday. And so he wasn't here with us, but oh, here we go. We're live on YouTube. All right. So Sharon and I are reading Never Forget to Laugh, the story of Bill Thetford, written by Carol Howe. And Carol was a good friend of Bill's and wonderful, wonderful book. So let me get the share screen up. And all right. I'm not sure. Is this where we ended the last time? I don't know. Okay. Let's see. All right. Oh yeah, this is the story about Bill and the dog. So let's just read this story. I'll start since you've been talking this whole time.
Yeah, and I'll just catch
So
up. Or like I'm
okay,
just eating something, and then you just tell
yeah,
me when you. Okay.
sounds good to me. All right. So once when Bill was in Denver, this is where Carol Howe lived, and Bill would come and visit her. We were in the front yard watching the children when a lovely dog, a handsome Irish setter, limped into the yard. His paws were raw and bleeding, as if he had a very long, hard run on concrete. He came straight toward us as if on purpose, clear about his destination, then nearly collapsed. Bill had a very tender heart, and we were just talking about that with Sharon. Bill had a very tender heart, was concerned about the dog, as we all were, and asked several times what we could do for him. We provided water, food, and a safe place to rest until the owner, whose number was on his collar, returned our call that evening. The dog was very friendly and, despite his recent experience, seemed content to sit with us for several hours until his owner arrived to collect him. Later, the owner told us the dog had been stolen from his backyard and carried off for some unknown purpose. He had escaped his captors and was trying to find his way back home. Our neighborhood was approximately on the way. It seemed purposeful that Bill had this unanticipated encounter with the dog. The episode might seem trivial, but it was important to Bill. By his own account, he had been under tremendous strain, self-imposed though it may have been, at Columbia, especially during the scribing years. He had spoken of the struggle that seemed the hallmark of his life. Our, quote, outer life is a seamless whole with the, quote, inner, and both Bill and the dog, after a long, difficult journeys, were on the final leg of returning home. A lesson from A Course in Miracle comments on our suffering when we, quote, leave home, unquote. In other words, when we refuse to accept the truth about ourselves. And this is from the Course. And let me look real quick at where the footnote says it is. I'm trusting a lot. Lesson 166. So this is from lesson 166. All right, come back. Don't make me worry. I shouldn't be being so tricky here, going back and forth between things when the internet's acting so screwball. All right, come along. Oh man. All right, let's just take a minute. Um, so yeah, I understand that. I'm a real animal lover too, and I belong to a group here in town on the Facebook that's for lost and found pets. And every day I'm looking on there, people are finding animals all over the place, and they put them on there, put their pictures, and then other people can find them. Or if, like in a lot of cases, is very sad, but in a lot of cases, animals will be hit by vehicles on the road, and sometimes the people stop, sometimes the people don't stop. Um, And so if someone in the group is driving along, they see an animal in the road, they'll stop, check on it. If it's deceased, they'll move it to the side of the road, call the Humane Society to come and pick it up. And um, it's all this love for these animals. And while I'm waiting for my computer to stop acting up, thinking about these animals that my partner Sandy, they have those commercials on TV where they're they show the animals that are in cages and that are starving, and they sing this really sad in the arms of an angel song, and it's all real sad seeming. And Sandy, she sees that and she just gets really upset about that. She can't stand to see these animals that appear to be suffering. And and this has nothing, really honestly, this has nothing to do with her or her character or anything like that. It's just she is an animal lover. I see the ads for, Save the Children and all these hungry children all over the world, and that's how I feel. It breaks my heart to see little children who are starving, or little children who don't have, maybe they need a surgery, maybe they have a physical ailment or something like that, and I don't get upset about it, but it does make me really sad to see these kids that are having this hard time. I'm not sure why this is doing this now, but excuse me. I'm going to close this off and reopen it and see if I can't get a better thing out of it. I don't know what happened, but I shouldn't have gone and looked for that quote because it screwed me up. Okay. Open the Kindle back up and go and find our book again. Here we go. And hopefully it'll open up and we'll be there. There we go. Yay. Okay. All right. So, so this is the quote from lesson 166 about leaving home. He seems a sorry figure, weary, worn, in threadbare clothing, and with feet that bleed a little from the rocky road he walks. No one but has identified with him, for everyone who comes here has pursued the path he follows and has felt defeat and hopelessness as he is feeling them. Yet, is he really tragic when you see that he is following the way he chose and need but realize who walks with him and open up his treasures to be free? See, so that's it exactly. This is what Jesus is asking us. This is not, me saying, well, are you really paying attention? You think things are so bad? Am I really looking and seeing a tragic life when I'm seeing these starving children? Uh, the they seem to have no choice. They seem to be in a place where they don't belong, and no one cares for them, or these animals, animals too. I mean, all of God's creation is in the choosing mode. We all chose what we have. So, me looking at him and saying, wow, they're tragic. But Jesus asked the question, is he really tragic? Is it really tragic when you see that he's doing what he asked to do? He just needs to realize who's walking with him. He just needs to realize, what the truth is. And if he could just realize what the truth is, he would not be suffering. And that's the key to suffering. The getting over suffering is realizing I ask for this. And if I just realize who walks with me on this path, in this place, then what I would experience is joy, not suffering and fear, not sadness, not upset. I would be feeling absolute joy, even if I was starving to death, even if I was dying from some terrible disease, or even if I was in the middle of the war and bombs were falling all around me. If I could just realize that the Holy Spirit, that God, that Jesus is right here with me, and that all these things that I'm seeing are temporary uh, pictures of of a world in my mind that chooses or wants to be a victim. When I recognize that being a victim is my choice, then it seems pretty dang funny to be crying over it. It seems kind of silly to be being upset about it when I'm the one who chose it. It's like, you will go in the ice cream parlor and you order your pistachio almond or whatever ice cream that you like, and they give it to you and you're eating it and you're going, I really don't like pistachios. Why did they give me this? Well, because I ordered it. I asked for it. And when I asked for it, I got what I asked for. And it's up to me to decide, you know, why am I ordering something I don't like? I do like pistachios, by the way. So anyway, so yeah, that's a real good lesson here. Is that whatever I'm experiencing, um, it's my own quest. It's what I asked for, and if I don't learn the lesson that I asked for, guess what? I'm going to get another one. And I'll get another one, and I'll get another one, and I'll get another one. They'll keep coming and coming and coming until I learn the lesson. It's not because God's trying to punish me for, whatever, wanting to be away from Him. It's my own self that's saying, you can't live and be in joy when you are separate from God. I can't live and be in joy when I'm separate from myself, my source, myself, my source. That's right. So, that's all I have to do is recognize that I'm in heaven, and that's where I am. So, yeah, it reminds me there's a story in the Hans Christian Andersen called The Little Match Girl. I don't know if y'all are familiar with his works, but I was obsessed with him when I was a child. I read all of his everything over and over because I loved the story so much. They're very deeply spiritual. But the story of the little match girl is about a little girl who, poverty in London, very poor, living in the streets, and it's cold winter, and she is selling matches. And at the time, matches were not something that you could just go in a corner store and buy. So she was selling matches, and it was dark and it was cold, and nobody was coming to buy her matches, and she got colder and colder, so she lit one of the matches, and when she lit the match she saw a beautiful place where there was a big feast and people were celebrating, and it was Christmas, and it was a wonderful thing. When she lit the match she could see this, and so, when the match burned out, that was gone, and there she was back again in the cold. And so she lit another match. And the second match, again, she saw herself in a big hall. She was there with a big feast with, people celebrating, and she was in such joy. And until the match burned out, she was there. And so she had one match left, and she lit that match. And again, she was in that great hall. But this time, the match, she didn't go leave when the match went out. She stayed there, and she was in this beautiful place where there was plenty to eat and it was warm and beautiful. And of course, the next morning, passersby on the street found her little body laying there because she had died. And that last match was her glimpse into heaven. And there she was in heaven and not in the cold London streets. This is what happens when we choose to light the match, when we choose to, take the choice between, if I sold this match, it could buy me some food, to where I'm just going to light this match because I need this warmth, I need this light. And when she lit the match and found the warmth and the light, she found herself back home in heaven. And so that's what this reminds me of. We all have these matches, and we light them and we see, some goodness. We light them and we see some joy. But then the match burns out, and that joy and that peace is gone until we, realize that that place is where we really are. And this cold, dark street where we are weary and worn in threadbare clothing with bleeding feet, um, that is not where we really are. Where we really are is in heaven, where the treasures are there for all of us. Anyway, that's my thought about that. You have anything you want to share about that, Sharon, or anybody else?
Nothing, nothing coming up, but I will say, when you and Myrna were talking about animals, right before we got on this morning, my son was here and Jonathan, and we were talking about, what disturbs this mind is when children are taken from parents or when children are abused, just what you were sharing. And Jonathan said, Mom, it's always been animals. So I went and I just felt that inside. And what I felt like is, because I'm very into Corinne's new teachings, which is the clairs. We are all gifted in these clairs, and the clairs are picking, like, just because we're empaths, we all care about everyone on the deepest level, we're all one. So yeah, so when you were talking about that, you and Myrna, it's so interesting because that was the exact conversation. And I think it's interesting that we're all one, and yet sometimes and it could be coming from wholeness, because even though wholeness knows nothing's here and it's just a play, the love that some of us have for children and some of us have for animals are just part of the gift that we get from the universe. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to explain for folks in the group who haven't heard this, Corinne Zupko is doing a new program, and she's calling it the Claires. And it's not like the Claires, like the little Claires, the nuns. It's clairvoyant, clairaudient, clair, all the things how we see without our eyes, without our ears, uh, without our thinking. They're clair, meaning clear, is just a different way of experiencing. And what I think Corinne is pointing out is that we are all clairvoyant, we are all clairaudient, we are all, I'm not sure what all the other clairs are that she's talking about,
Yeah, I
but
don't either.
that's a
She
term
knows them, but
made
yeah,
up.
I see. That's just a gift, because I always thought, like, how does ACIM? Because ACIM only sees mind, but it doesn't talk about the chakras. So yeah, but I love the
Well,
way you.
yeah, but it's not really about the chakras either. I don't think it's about, because Claire's doesn't have anything to do with the chakra either. It just has to do with these extrasensory
Right,
perceptions
right. I don't
that
know because I haven't really dipped into it yet, but I will say I don't know enough to say, but I'm very curious, interested, and she's a course teacher, so it just what brings it all
yeah,
together.
and a therapist also. So
And she's a therapist, yeah.
yeah, Myrna has her hand up. Go ahead, Myrna.
I'm
Yes, I love
sorry.
it. Yeah. No, I love that you mentioned Hans Christian Andersen. I mean, I loved his stories of the ugly duckling. Every story had a message of the ugly duckling who grew up to be a beautiful swan. He was so ugly when and all the other, they wanted nothing to do with him, the other ducks or swans, until he recognized, he looked in the water and saw that he was beautiful too. He grew up to be a beautiful swan. And Thumbelina, tiny little thing. When your heart is full of love, you're 9 feet tall. I mean, I loved his stories. All of them had a message. And in fact, if you ever saw his movie, the movie with Danny Kaye, who plays Hans Christian Andersen, and you get a glimpse into his stories. I thought it was wonderful. I saw that movie 10 times, I think. So when you mentioned Hans Christian Andersen, I really was familiar with it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Myrna. I love
Yeah,
that
I
movie
was
too.
obsessed with him. Because yes, you're right. All the stories had a very deep spiritual meaning. It was
Mhm.
not like just, oh, this is a spiritual sounding story. His stories all had very deep spiritual meanings. And so it's pretty amazing because he was a cobbler, a shoemaker.
Mhm.
And I loved that movie too when I was a kid. Anyway, thank you, Myrna, for bringing that up. All right. So you want me to continue reading or you want to read?
Yeah, I'll read. Where were we? And then Myrna, this is for everyone. So, and Regis, whoever wants to read, it's just an open invitation. So it's chapter 12,
Oh
right?
yeah,
12.
chapter 12. Yeah.
While planning for one of his visits, I asked Bill if he would allow me to host a reception so that some in the local ACIM community could meet him. He said he would be happy for that to happen. He willingly accepted, even though he could have said no. On the appointed, you have to move it now. On the appointed date, the house and yard filled with people eager to meet him. He responded to their enthusiasm and graciously, as if being a social butterfly was his favorite thing, once again adapting to the situation. Though he didn't seek it, he understood their desire to meet and visit with him. However, as I grew to know his secret heart better, I learned that being the focus of attentions was contrary to his basic nature. And I never put him through that again. In agreeing to the party, Bill was simply being generous, not phony or selling out. He was able to rise to the occasion when he chose. It's funny because I think most of us don't like to be the center of attention. I don't know. Maybe I should speak for myself. There are times I think that, for my birthday, I liked it, but too much of it just didn't feel like, I guess there's a part of this mind that likes to kind of, I'm very verbal and upfront, but I'm also not someone that wants, I wouldn't like it if I was Bill, like having everybody come to me for that. But I would do it. But I don't know that I feel comfortable. And that's really because our egos are just so like, well, they're just in duality. So maybe one time you could say yes, but when somebody just focuses on, well, we know people that, just are so about them. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just didn't appeal to me to just have all that, that center of attention. And when I think of Bill, I think of this gentle soul. I think of this gentle man. I think about a lot of his challenges as a human. Certainly being gay in those days was very challenging, as it is right now again. And I guess I identify a lot of times, this mind does, with the most vulnerable. And yet he still went along because he was so charming. And the way I see Helen, I think she meant well, but I think she had a nervous system that seemed harsher than one that Bill had, and very possessive. But she gave us a gift, and that came from the higher self that we all are. And I'm grateful for her. But this book is appealing to me as a person because even though I'm not a person, I identify with him more than I identify with Helen. So it's like being put on a pedestal. Here we are, okay? Here he says, Bill didn't object to socializing under the right circumstances, but he strongly disliked being put on a pedestal as the center of attention with expectations attached. That has to do with his sensitivity. Friends from his New York days remembered Bill's great cocktail parties with many people in attendance, including colleagues for Columbia. They also remembered his inventing all kinds of irreproducible drink concoctions of liquor and fruit juices. He was only 34 when he joined the Columbia staff, and drinking and cigarette smoking was the norm in his pre-course days. However, I don't recall his drinking anything but an occasional glass of wine when I knew him. Bill was a walking contradiction and could be either vivacious or completely reserved. Looking at that, that's I don't know about you, Lynn, or any of you, but that's how I see myself sometimes. Like I can be very outgoing, and then I can also be, to myself, depending upon the circumstances. As the reception in his honor, Bill met Bob Beal, another longtime friend of ours. Of all those he met in Denver, he felt most simpatico with Jason and Bob, both having a sensitive, compassionate nature similar to his. Yeah, I can identify with that. If Bill's Denver family was about sanctuary and respite for the various roles he played, these two certainly added to his sense of well-being. I always arranged for them to get together when he came to town, and both occasionally visit Bill in Tiburon. Okay. Okay, you can, is that it? Yeah, during that reception on another occasions, I watched as Bill was inevitably asked two questions. The first about his role in ACIM saga, still a bit unnerving to him. And the second, well, Bill, what are you doing now that you've retired and living in California? He would respond that he was practicing forgiveness as a full-time job, which confused about everyone, course and non-course people alike, since forgiveness is often misunderstood even among long-time ACIM students. Like so many, he was still sorting out the relative importance of doing versus being. So he was a bit confused himself. I like this because, when you see, the sorting out, I don't know, I'm still in it because I still believe certain, beliefs, and the sorting out period is just the purification period. So, and I think for this mind, it might be going through that until I'm not here anymore. Who knows? But the willingness is there. And he seemed to say practicing forgiveness. I'm going to go on to say that because I really believe that forgiveness happens organically. An ego cannot forgive. It can't. It's impossible. It's all about grievances. So his response of practicing forgiveness usually ended the conversation about his career and personal world. Most people would smile, change the subject, or look a bit blank, like, what does that mean? Occasionally, however, someone would stumble, acknowledge his response, then ask once again, but what are you doing? As if practicing forgiveness was simply a clever answer or a dodge. I love this. Normally, he was gracious with such questions, patient with the lack of understanding that practicing forgiveness is a full-time job. And if it is not paramount in our lives, nothing else actually matters. Once or twice, I saw his eyes flash as to say, I'm so tired of answering this question. Again, Bill was being lived, as we all are, by the one. So he was instructed. Now, I don't know about any of you guys, but I did not have any ability to forgive my ex-husband. And yet I would say it's not complete forgiveness because he comes up from certain ways, but it's getting to that point. And that's just happening from the universal mind. When this process comes into our consciousness, the ego will take it as its own and say, well, you're special. Now you know the secret. But the truth is, we're all the same, really. When it comes to forgiveness, it's organic. And I don't know about, I would bet that you guys are the same place where I am. You can't get away from this stuff. You are already, hi, Laura, you are already like in the forgiveness mode, because it's not guilt that keeps us in this. It's the movement of the energy of the one, right? To realize that we are just a vessel for the divine will. That's it. So, Myrna, go ahead. You share, sweetheart. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to share something that's been bothering me about a friend of mine, my friend Gloria. Gloria and I have known each other all our life. Okay, we've been through thick and thin together, and so forth. But Gloria has a way of speaking where she has no filters. Okay, whatever is on her brain is on her tongue. And I've always, yeah, in the past it kind of upset me a little bit. We'd have our little arguments, and but we were close. Also, there were parts of us that remained close. And lately, and then I went through a long period where, practicing forgiveness, letting it go, practicing forgiveness. And now, it's like I don't have the tolerance for that anymore. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. We were playing Mahjong. I was teaching her and three other women to play Mahjong. And one of the women, I don't know, she's learning. And Gloria said to her, "Oh, you're a lousy player 25 years ago. You're still a lousy player." That's what she said to her. Or I showed her a ring that I got as a gift, and she looked at it and she said, "That's a crappy ring." Okay. Now I say, well, this is her. This is Gloria, but it's like I want to sort of now pull away from her after all these years. I just, why now? Why is this coming out now? Is this my period of sorting out with her? Where, I mean, I thought I was so completely understanding of forgiveness, and yet I just don't even want to be with her anymore, really. So what is that all about, may I ask? I mean, this is
Yeah, something's come through me if you want to.
yeah, I mean, she and many things just like that.
I would, this is my experience anyway. We're going deeper. And as we go deeper into consciousness, authenticity comes out. And the energy of this woman is probably a harsher energy than you want in your field.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being moved away just automatically by this organic process. And it's not personal. It's just, we are vibrational beings. So when we go into different, like, we're a lot of people, I can't be in their energy field anymore because they're in, the lower ego is where we start. And as we're going up on the ladder, we are into the higher ego. And as we do that, there's a deepening. And what happened for me is, like, I would never say the things I say now. The honesty has come forward. So I think that's just the best way. I hope that was helpful.
Well, I don't know what to do about her. I mean, or why.
Well,
maybe Lynn has something else.
I just wanted to say something about this too. And we all know this because the course tells us that it's never about her, it's about me and my thinking. So what is it that I can't tolerate about my own thinking? Or what is it that I want to get away from in my own thinking? Because the fact that she hasn't changed, but you have, that's a good thing. But the change that you've made is put you where you're a lot more sensitive to these seeming slights or seeming upsets or just rudeness or whatever it is that you're experiencing with her. And of course you heard a story of uh, she maybe said things that upset other people or made other people feel less than loved or less than good. And in your own heart, you don't want to condemn anybody. You don't want to condemn your friend or the friends that she's made smart ass remarks about or two. And so it puts you in a position where you're kind of in between. You're kind of in between. And the reality of it is, it's just pointing out something in your own mind that you need to look at, or that that's what I would say to myself. What is it that I need to look at in my own mind that has shown me this this kind of behavior in another person and show me that it's not acceptable. I'm sure you've always thought it's not acceptable, but you tolerated it because you love your friend. And you know, and it's the same thing, when you do it yourself, it's not acceptable. What you tolerate because you love yourself and you don't want to condemn yourself for those kind of thoughts. But I would take Jesus's from the course saying, would I accuse myself of doing this? and really look at maybe places where you have done that, or you do that, or you want to do that, but you don't speak out, but in your mind you're going crazy, going, "Oh my God, you idiot!" So all of those things are your own judgments that are being just revealed to you. But that's how I would see it, because I think that everything that's happening is happening to show me something about my own thinking. So that's my thought about that. And I see Lori has her hand up, and so does Sharon. I know Lori is very wise about this stuff, so I'd love to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, and I'll echo what you guys both said was really good, both important pieces. And what Sharon said about, as you raise your vibration, I've always seen that with everybody, that as they raise their vibration, old friends fall off, because those people, you met them when you were at a different level and they just don't match anymore. But the one thing I have found, when I have friends that I don't like anymore, and this goes with what Lynn was saying, it's always about ourselves, is I would feel guilty. I feel guilty. I don't like this person anymore. I don't want to be around this person anymore. And as long as I felt guilty, they still hung around. But when I stopped feeling guilty and said, I don't need to feel guilty, I just don't want to be around this person anymore, they just kind of fade away out of my life. So that's all I have to say.
I like that a lot.
I love that. Yeah. And here's the thing, what Lori said is exactly what I feel. I was saying is that you always look at your own thinking, but we already know that. But as you start to progress into the field and you are no longer, because, we are really energetic beings, and the ego is the domain of the ego. I mean, this is the domain of the ego. But as we rise in consciousness, we're going to different dimensions and our energy field changes. And it has nothing to do with anything happening personally. This is an impersonal dream, period. It's just this, and this is my coming from through me. And if I'm wrong because I don't care anymore if I'm wrong. And I'm just like you, Lori, I don't care if I don't feel guilty anymore. If you talk about my life, I had more harsh people. I mean, the universe was trying to say, girl, you have harshness in you, because I was gentle and I had harsh people in my life. And that was my mirror of what I couldn't look at. But today, I would not be with harsh people. No, I'm too honest now. No. I know who I am. And when you really are authentic, you realize they can't help it, but you don't want to stay in energies that don't lift you, because we are only energy. And there's no need to feel guilty. That's all. So I agree 100% with all of you, really. Lynn, what she said was true. What all of you, it's perfect. But I do feel that it's not wrong, Myrna, to move in another direction. The way you described her, I couldn't be around her. So that's just me.
I like that a lot, because yes, you're right. I see that. I really do. I'm not around people whose energies I don't really feel comfortable with. And I kind of pride myself with this, but she's like a 40-year-old friend, and she's somebody that I'm sort of becoming to the point that everything she says bothers me, because it's just not nice. What she says is just not nice. So, so maybe she's the last standing man in my life that's gonna.
Who knows? I feel like we're gonna have lessons all through our lives, the lessons of love.
Yeah.
I don't have any, I just think that it's important. I don't know. This is coming from something that I was always a people pleaser.
Yeah, no, I like that, because it's true. I agree with that. That's always my advice to other people. That's stay away from. You don't have to feel guilty about it. Just you don't really need to be around this. But somehow maybe I feel compelled to, because she's an old friend, and and there must be part of me that must love her, because I'm sort of I stay with her, but now it's like I become very agitated all the time. And I thought about what you said, maybe I should just enough of this relationship as well, just kind of love her and let her just go, because she's not going to change. People don't change unless they want to change. So I'm not going to change her. I realize that. So either I have to change my thinking about her, or I just have to now step away from her. So those are the two choices really. So I
I
realize
think you'll handle it wonderful. I think you'll handle it great because the way you describe where you're at,
yeah.
you love her anyway. So, but you understand the energy. That's all. But it has. That's my whole life, though. I always felt guilty. Like, I had a mother that would drive me nuts, and her energy was tough on me. And when I moved, somehow that's when I really started to progress. I had an ex-husband like that. But I will say it was on me because I didn't want to look at my self-hatred, even though I know I have it, still do. So it's both. But you can't hurt anybody because all of this is for us. So anyway,
Yeah, I
then you
love
want to go, do you want to read anybody else, Lori? Because we have, what I think so important here, what's going on is just talking from the heart and just saying, like, because all of us need help at times, like throwing that question out there, Myrna, was very helpful. Because it leads me to think I have also a friend that I grew up with, and she was very needy. But, I help people that's kids are drug addicted. And she wouldn't go for help. And I finally said, you have to, I'm not a professional. That was hard for me. She was my next door neighbor from the time I was 2. So, but we're still friends, close. But see, for me, it was just, a way of just people pleasing. It was a way of me coping, you know.
Well, and we're not
Oh, Laura, you're
therapists.
working out. I usually do that too. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lynn.
I was saying we're not therapists. We're not, even if we were professionally trained,
No.
we're not there to therapize our friends either. And
No.
and so, I would think, if you were to say something to her like, I don't like, this particular behavior, or this doesn't, resonate with me anymore, or whatever kind of thought you might have, she'd be confused, like, what the heck? It's been okay this long time. I've been doing this all this time and you never complained about it. How come now all of a sudden you're upset about, this thing? And uh she'd be right.
Yeah.
Right.
She
Right.
she would feel offended, and she would probably feel very hurt
Yeah.
that, suddenly, my friend has turned on me. So, that's where forgiveness comes in. And I think that's what, we're talking about here. Is uh, uh, saying, I want the peace of God. And so, she may come to my game, and she may say rude things to somebody. You know, uh, there's nothing wrong with you, standing up for somebody too if they're being picked on, and saying, that she's learning, or, I don't see what's a problem, or, whatever, but it's hard, like I said, when we've been letting this go on for all these years, and then all of a sudden we're like, I can't take this anymore. And the best thing to do is just, keep it to yourself and ask yourself, would I accuse myself of this? And work it out in your own mind. And you'll be surprised when, that this is what this course is telling us, is that when we work this out in our own mind, and we come to a place of forgiveness in our own minds, then these little problems will melt away. And this person may completely change because you changed. Because that's what happens. When I change, others around me change. When my mind heals, others around me become more tolerant, more loving, more gentle, more kind. And I've seen it happen over and over again, where, I thought, this person is never going to change, and they're always going to just be this nightmare of a friend. And, not saying that this friend is a nightmare, but just, that they become, when you change your mind about them, it completely changes everything about them as well,
Yeah.
because it's a reflection of my own mind and my own thinking. So
Right.
you will see it. You'll absolutely see it when you move into that forgiveness.
Yeah. I see.
So,
Thank you.
I also feel like
all right.
the collective is
Go ahead.
very, very, the collective right now is affecting all of us because we're not separate. So always remember
Yeah,
that, you know.
right. And we're affecting the collective.
Yes.
And believe me, my mind is more powerful than the collective. The mind that I share with God is more powerful than the collective ego. So that's all I can be assured of. That's how Jesus was. He was sure that his mind was more powerful than the minds of those around him who, you know, reviled and hated him. He could see beyond that. And, you know, that's, you know, if you could see beyond it, then you're the master of your own world. Anyway,
It's not
so let's see.
personal though. Like, you know, what I've learned is just from the shifts, it's not me. It's like, in other words, I think that everyone has to be where they are and also listen what's inside. That's all, because I feel like we really are still in God. But this is still, when you wake up here, you're still illusory. You're still in the illusion. So awakening here is the higher self. So I just, because we are still in God, because these people that we are, we're not even that. These are just thoughts. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's nothing wrong with being affected by any of this because it's just being honest. And then, you know, it all works. So,
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. But being honest about what, you know, that I'm a victim, you know, that's the only other thing that, you know, you could be seeing if you weren't seeing that I'm the one in control. So anyway, that's just a
I don't
thought.
take the course literally like you. Maybe you do. I do not read the book literally. I see things in the book that were meant for Bill and Helen. The book is a good book, but isn't just a book. I just will never take anything literally because that, and if you follow Wapnick, that's what he says throughout his teachings. If you do that, you're in trouble. It's just not a literal teaching because it's coming through a human mind. And we're still, when we wake, if we wake, we're still in the body. And as long as we're still in the body, we are still in the illusion. So God's mind is powerful. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, that we wake up and we have the mind that's really in God, the formlessness. Like, I think you have to be out of this dimension. If you think, you know, I don't mind being wrong if anybody wants to share about it.
I'm just thinking Jesus did it.
We don't know that.
The whole
Jesus is
thing,
a
Jesus did
name,
it.
but it's the universal mind. We
Right.
didn't know Jesus. You know, when we talk about Jesus, it's another story made up by the mind because there was never a Jesus. There was never a me. There was never a you. So it's like to me, it's all universal mind because, you know, I loved the stories of Jesus, but we're still making a character real. I
Yeah,
hope
it's a symbol.
yeah, it's a symbol. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
a
So we
symbol.
don't know what he did. But I know that I think that I never left, the real me never left Kevin. This at the moment that this was thought of, the creator stopped it and out blew the Big Bang. So that's what we're living through, the Big Bang all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, but I'm not going to, you know, things like a good example of this, somebody who I feel was very authentic was Liz Cronkite. She was like in sync with the spirit and everything. And then maybe 3 years ago, she was in the field. She went into a higher consciousness and she went into terror for 2 years. Now, do you think she brought that on? Because there's no Liz. It's the one. So that's what I was trying to say. I open up and I don't, I think you didn't probably hear me in my last sharing, Lynn, but any purist or anyone that believes that this is the complete truth it's up to them. I just will never. The truth is the truth that nothing happened. So why in the world are we gonna like try to be, you know, pretending that we even left God because we didn't. So the holy mind here is still illusory. That's just and if you don't see that, that's just my opinion. It's just my whatever you call it. I see things now as the present moment, The holy instant is all that's real, and all the concepts of the Course are meaningless as you realize that they're just symbols. So, Lori.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the symbols, it's whatever it means to me. So,
So
Lori,
what's
please go
helping
ahead.
you? See, that's the thing. Everybody has helpers, and Jesus is a helpful name because you always knew he was love. And listen, I did a painting when I first found the Course of Jesus. I wanted to know him that way. So anyway, Lori.
Oh, yeah. You weren't here on Thursday, Sharon, but I had mentioned about how you mentioned about not taking the course literally the week before. I do take the course literally. And my studies with Joe Dispenza and Christian Science actually affirm that for me, because and my own personal experience. And I agree with Ken Wapnick, because Ken Wapnick was talking, I mean, I don't agree with everything, but I agree with what he was trying to do, which he was saying from your ego, you can't change anything. And he generalized it all, because people can tend to be really stupid from their ego and think that they're creating or think that they're the higher self. And then, like he would say, well, don't stop, paying your insurance premium, But there have been so many healings when people, they get out of the way. And what Joe Dispenza teaches, which is the same as Christian Science, the same as A Course in Miracles, is that you don't create from the ego thought system. And the Course says that too. From the ego thought system, we're in a closed loop, and it's death, fear, and past and future and sin. But when you get out of it, that's when you have the miracles that show up. And so I don't think we're meant to live in, sickness and in disease and in conflict and all that. And it seems to me like a lot of Course people are like, well, we can have miracles in our relationships and with our own personal sense of peace and lack of conflict, but we shouldn't have any miracles around the body healing. But there are, I don't know how many, I'd have to count them, at least 100 references specifically in the Course about the body will heal. All form will change as soon as you understand the purpose of sickness. And I don't think Jesus was saying all form will change except the body, or the body will heal, wink, wink, not really the body. Like Ken always said in his stuff, oh, he didn't really mean the body. I'm like, I think he did. And like Lynn was saying, when he walked this earth 2,000 years ago, he healed everybody. So I do take it literally. And, and for a long time, I thought I must be wrong, because most of my friends don't. They would follow the Ken Wapnick model. But anyway, I've come back around to where I originally was. But I think everyone does understand it's for the way they need to understand it. And I have to go get my laundry. My timer's going off. Thanks.
I want to just say this. Ken Wapnick, I bought Choose to Change Your Mind. This is about Ken Wapnick when he's saying, basically, it's called Living A Course in Miracles. And in this, he's saying, Kenneth reminds you that there's a misperception in taking the Course literally. He cites an example of a nurse who gave up her job and worldly possessions, thinking that such action was dictated by the Course. What worldly possessions have you attempted to give up? So some people, like Regina, gave up everything and it worked. So everyone has a different curriculum. But I would never take it. Helen has things in her mind. And what I've done is I've dipped into her stuff a little bit through the absence of felicity. I have it. And some of the sickness she had judgments for, but to take one book, it doesn't work for me. And obviously, if Ken wrote this, because these are his notes, Living A Course in Miracles, I have the whole thing here. And he's saying it's a misperception. So using it as a guide, that's perfect. Using it as the only thing doesn't work for me, because I have read like countless books over the years. And a lot of people say, well, you won't wake up. Well, if you look around today, there's a lot of beings that have woken up completely without doing one thing. So it's popcorn. So that's just my decision. That's just my thing. And Regis, and it's actually a good discussion, because I'm not arguing, because everyone's coming from what their experience is. So I'll never make you wrong, but you know, it's still, you're still illusory in this world, even when you wake up. And Joe Dispenza, he's as gifted as they can come. And he teaches, and some people wake up from him and some people don't. But I leave myself open to the fact that I feel that the one being is waking us up. Call it Holy Spirit, call it wholeness, call it whatever you want. Call it Jesus. It's just a name. But we aren't doing anything. And it's not a separate self that wakes up. It's oneness that's waking up. Anyway, Regis, Regis had his hand up and then Mickey.
Yeah, before Regis, I just wanted to say, I have had actual physical healings.
No, I had
Listening,
fibro terribly, Lynn.
no,
I mean,
listening to Joe Dispenza, I have been deathly ill. Listened to Joe Dispenza for an hour and been completely well. I mean, it is a shift in the mind. When the mind shifts, the body shifts with it. That's just the inevitable of it all. So I think, the idea that, it doesn't affect the body, well, that's not true because it's my experience that's being affected. So my experience as a body is being affected by
yeah, you have an experience
experience
that
in the
you're
mind.
healed, but are you totally healed? What I'm trying to say is everybody's in their own personal thing. And I don't mind being wrong, but I'm sticking to my thing. Nothing here. To take a book literally, you would have to believe that her mind was completely healed before she downloaded this.
It had nothing to do with her. That's the thing. It was, in fact, it was so not having anything to do with her that she was completely separated herself from it. It was something from out of time and space in my mind.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it was, but that doesn't mean that her stuff didn't get in there. And that doesn't mean, like Ken Wapnick died of cancer. And a lot of people said, well, because he had cancer, he wasn't really healed. And that's
that
ridiculous.
doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with
See,
it.
we're all
Anyway, go ahead,
contradicting
Regis.
because if you look at that, Ken Wapnick definitely, I have a friend that told me before he died that you could stand next to him and feel a different vibration. And yet he still died of cancer. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because
Anyway, Regis had his hand up a while ago.
Yeah, go ahead, Regis.
Oh, you can go ahead, Mickey.
You can go, Regis.
You can go. You can go. After you. After you.
Oh, well. Well, my comment was kind of based on something else where the conversation have shifted down a rabbit hole, and I'm somewhere else, so you all can go ahead.
What was it?
He's muted.
Regis, what was it?
Well, back earlier, Sharon, I was agreeing with you in with Myrna's comment, and the one question that I would pose, if you're a non-smoker and a family member or a friend is going to be staying with you and they smoke and they want to smoke inside the house, would you say, I'm just going to go within and not let the smoke bother me and let them smoke in my house?
No, I would tell them I don't like smoke.
Exactly, exactly. So
Right.
when the Course, the Bible, the Buddha, or whatever spiritual teaching uh, is like the letter without the spirit doesn't give life, it gives death. So it's life, living with other people is just not uh, words on a page in a book. The Course, the Bible, it's all personal.
That's
It's
right.
all
It's a
personal.
self-study. That's what I shared. Yeah.
I can tell a friend don't smoke in my house and not be judging them. Everything is not judgment. You can set healthy boundaries and not be judging a person as wrong or you're bad or I'm better than you. It's just healthy boundaries. So if there's a friend, like I've had long-term friends that I've known uh, 25, 30 years maybe. uh, that the conversations they want to have with me, I'm not willing to have. I don't have to put myself in the worst situation possible to prove I'm spiritual. That's not what this life, this unfolding life is about. We don't have to test ourselves. We don't have to put ourselves in the worst possible environment and then say, I'm going to prove my spirituality by some kind of way going into a place where this doesn't bother me anymore. It's like, and I told a friend, and we still friends. I'm like, no, I'm not going to gossip with you. If when you call me, when the conversation shifts into talking about other people and their wrongs and what they're doing, that's not an environment that I'm going to be in. Uh, it's not a judgment. If that's what you want to do it with other people. Just don't do it with me. So I just think that we have to keep all of our spiritual principles that we live by. It's personal for us. It's for our personal peace. And we talk about Ken Wapnick, but Ken Wapnick constantly had to remind Course in Miracles students uh, that you don't deny the physical world that you're living in, the people that you're interacting with, the family members, the neighbors, uh, those relationships. You just don't bypass and say, well, it's not real, and I'll just go within. Because we help people. Because the thing is love, love, love. Not the words on a page. Love is not the words on a page. Love is not the words in the Course in Miracles. Love is not the words printed in the Bible. Love is not the words printed in the Quran. Those are maybe ideals and beliefs about love, but they are not love. So in every moment, every second of the day, it's a call for yes to go within and to respond in love. And love is not always yes.
That's right.
It still feels like sometimes we're saying love is always yes. Smoke in my house, gossip in my presence, uh, do whatever. Yes, yes, yes. To say no is not to be in resistance. If it's pouring down raining, I didn't know it was raining. I opened the door, it's pouring down raining. I accept the rain. I grab an umbrella. I'm not in resistance to the rain because I get an umbrella. I'm actually accepting this rain, and I'm also accepting the fact that I don't want to be soaking wet. you know so
Right.
it's still this balance, that this slippery slope, and it's not so slippery when you really step back and let Holy Spirit lead the way, but it is that balance of not getting so carried away. As I said last week, to a group, I don't know where I was, but I mentioned the quote, the truth not spoken in love ceases to be the truth. So we can know all these principles and truths, but that principle in truth is for the healing of our mind. It's not for the manipulation of the environment or the world or other people. It is the healing of my mind. And I think everybody know that Helen needed a lot of mental healing.
Yeah.
and and like all of us, not singling her out, but like all of us, but it's personal. It's very personal. But in our everyday, with our spouses, with our long-term friends, with our next door neighbors, with the person in the mall at the checkout counter, uh, we just show up. We just show up, and not we don't let uh, the lesson of the day lead the way. The lesson of the day from A Course in Miracles is for Regis. The lesson of the day may not have anything on a certain level to do with this interaction I'm having at Walmart with this clerk. But I'm letting love lead the way with this clerk. Not my principles, not my spiritual truths that I have intellectualized, but what is the call for right here, right now? If the call is for a holy no, it's for a holy no. If it's for a holy yes, it's for a holy yes. If it's for a holy maybe, let me think about it. that's that's what the call is. So it's not these hard, fast rules like the
Exactly.
letter of the law. The Bible says uh, the letter of the law is not good alone. It's the spirit, the love, the authenticity of who I am, not yesterday, who I think I'm going to be 5 years from now, but the authenticity of who I am right here, right now, in this moment. Thank you.
I just love what you just shared. I mean, only because this is what I've heard from you before. And I seem to be on the same page as you. We are still in a body here, and we have to be honest about our experience. And if somebody wanted to rape me, I wouldn't say, go ahead. Yet that's how I feel. And yet I was a person that was pushed around a lot because I'm very, just that was my dream. That's the story I had. And now, from becoming more authentic, I will say what I feel in a loving way. But love can be fierce sometimes. So anyway, this is really Lynn's thing, but Mickey hasn't shared and Myrna. But I'm not saying I disagree with you either, because I've been in places where I thought this was a literal book. But it's been too many years that I see that you take what you like and you leave the rest, because everyone has a different curriculum. So anyway, Mickey and then, and then Myrna.
Thank you, Regis. We are one mind, and you are my brother because you said pretty much everything that I was going to say, but I'll add a little bit to it. The course says this is a highly individual curriculum. Highly. What and I really have to laugh. You gotta laugh when people follow a certain teacher, who likes the literal um, meaning of the course, and somebody else follows a teacher who says it's a metaphor, and it is a hill that people will die on, which I find really hysterical because everyone has an individualized curriculum. If it works for me to wake up for this to be literal, it will for me be literal. If it works for me to have it be a metaphor, it will be a metaphor. It's whatever Holy Spirit thinks I should, if I feel it in my heart that absolutely, like Lori said, there are people who have physical healings with Christian Science, with Joel Goldsmith stuff, with Joe Dispenza's stuff. If that is what you are led to do, hurrah! That's great. If you want this to be a metaphor and have everything that you're experiencing be the way it is, hurrah! We need to not beat each other over the head if we're looking at it from a different angle, and we don't need to make anybody wrong. Holy Spirit's going to lead us where we need to go. And if we need a physical healing in order to understand what our true nature is, we'll have a physical healing. It's not where I'm headed. I want my mind to be healed. Above all else, I want the peace of God. If it has to do with my body, great. If it doesn't, great. I don't care. There was something else I was going to say, and it just flew out of my mind. It probably wasn't relevant, but if it comes back, I'll raise my hand again. Thanks, and glad to be back. Go ahead, Myrna.
Thank you. How was your
Thank you.
trip, by the way? Anyway, go
Great.
ahead, Myrna.
Great sharing. I mean, I really got something from everyone. My feeling is that when Jesus says, I will not to that I will take care of everything, everything, I take that literal because I've seen enough miracles to see that's true. Whatever it is, okay, I've seen so many miracles, and it took me a long time to say, okay, he fixed that, but what about this? But it got to the point where I was truly understand that I take Jesus completely at his word, and that yes, Ken Watnick died of cancer, but you got to die of something, right? I mean, so I believe that even though he died of cancer, he was completely at peace, and so was Helen Schuckman. She died of pancreatic cancer, and she was completely at peace. And I honestly feel that I never think about what I'm going to die from, but I know that whatever it is, I'm going to be completely at peace. I know that. And I know that Jesus knows I don't like pain, and I don't believe I'll be in pain. I really don't. I just know that when it's my time to go, I'll slip away from whatever disease or so-called disease I might be inflicted with, because I'm not just going to disappear. Okay, I'm going to die of something. So that's how I see it. I take him so literal, and I have so much love in my heart. The connection between me and Jesus is just something that I absolutely think is what I was put on this earth to do, to feel that. And that's just how I feel. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Myrna. That is so beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my friend. And it's really interesting because we keep talking about, died of cancer, died of this, died of that. There's no disease. The body itself is a disease. It's a thing that makes us think that we're something other than what we are. Cancer is an organism, and it has a biological um, uh, habitat, a place where it lives. It lives in the body. It lives in your whatever part of you, pancreas or whatever, it makes its home. It's not a disease. It's a living organism that has every right to live just as you do. And in fact, when we're reading about what is creation, it's the sum of everything that God made. Cancer, trees, dogs, they're all part of creation, everything. There's nothing in this world that is not meant to be here, not a part of the experience we asked for. And so, sure, you may get cancer, you may break your leg. That doesn't mean that you've done something wrong, or that you have fallen into a kind of a trap saying, "Oh my God, I have a leg now and it's broken." It's it's just a part of the dream, all of it. So, to even think, Ken died of cancer. Well, yeah, and so did, like Marshall Rosenberg we were listening to last night. He died from dementia. Everybody dies from something, or else you'd be living forever. And that doesn't happen in the body in this world. So, I would, for me, I have stopped thinking about the so-called diseases as being an affliction, or as being an insult on my person, my being. What I have is uh, a body, and maybe there's cancer living in here. I don't know. I could find that out maybe later, go to a doctor and he says, "Oh yeah, there's cancer living in there, and it's been living in there for 6 months or 2 years or whatever." It's living its life. I'm living my life. I'm a cancer on the earth. Look what I do. Man, I've completely destroyed how much just by my very existence here. How much electricity I use, how much gas do I use, how many habitats have I destroyed to build a house? How many, animals have been displaced for my neighborhood to be here? We're all the cancer. That's what we are, this physical world. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. That's, Lynn's passion, thinking about, what's the reality here. Mickey, please go ahead.
I remembered what I was going to say before. So you all know I'm reading Robert Schwartz's book now, Your Soul's Plan, and I'm really goo-goo over it. And the the thing about whether or not you're going to die from a disease, his whole theory with in this book is that you come here with a group of other souls, and you have contracts with each other that you're going to achieve certain goals by being in the world of form. And what if you're completely enlightened, but you have a contract with another person that they needed in this lifetime to experience grief, and that grief was going to come to them through a long-term illness that you have? You know, we don't know what anything is for. Somebody what might need something from you for having gone through that with you, for their soul to develop. And whether or not you have completely awakened is irrelevant if they need that from you to experience a long-term illness and having to care for someone and go through that. So it, for me, there are many more reasons why something needs to happen, and not just for our own awakening, but for those around us and for those who are going to experience a change in their life because they're in yours. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize my mic was on, and I'm coughing or sneezing over here. So yeah, and you know what? A Course in Miracles says that very similar, if not exact thing. I'm going to just put it up here in the room. Um, and it's from the Manual for Teachers, section 2, who are their pupils. And he's talking about the world of time, the world of the illusion. This is a section I think that we should read and read and read and come to a clear understanding, because it points out our existence in this world, our situation. He says, time really then goes backward to an instant so ancient that it is beyond all memory and past even the possibility of remembering. And he's talking about that tiny mad idea. Yet because it is an instant that is relived again and again and still again, it seems to be now. And thus it is that pupil and teacher seem to come together in the present, finding each other as if they had not met before. The pupil comes at the right time to the right place. This is inevitable because he made the right choice in that ancient instant, which he now relives. So has the teacher, too, made an inevitable choice out of an ancient past. God's will in everything, but seems to take time in working out. What could delay the power of eternity? So he's saying, we, a long time ago, when all this started, the tiny mad idea, we said, Lori, are you going to be here with me? And Lori said, yep, I'm here now. And Mickey, are you going to be here? Sharon, are you going to be here? Yep, we're all going to be here, because we had met before and planned it out. And it's inevitable because we're just reliving the plan. So, this is a really great section. I'm not going to go on with it. But there's so many hints in the course that say we planned this all out, and we chose these people, and these people that are showing up in our life right now are the very ones who made that deal with us back in those days, that said, yep, I'm going to be there for you, and you're going to be there for me. And, here we are. So thank you very much. Uh, anyway, and I know we went back, we're just going on and on. I haven't even changed. This is all one recording, but it's fine and dandy with me. I'm very happy that we have this discussion. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share right now?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to say that, if you go by what happened to me through my life, I was told that by my grandmother, it was a reflection of my mind. This was a dream, and I was 10 years old. My grandfather on the other side, when he died, he showed up in form and he was kissing me goodbye and I was screaming. Then I get married to a very huge narcissist because, like I said, I was denying the part of me that's a narcissist. I tend to be an empath. And then, the cat's in the cradle, the narcissist's husband, the ex-husband used to play it all the time. I'd say, why do you play that song all the time? So all that's and then there's so many reasons I knew this was my dream, but I wouldn't say that I know anything for sure because who I really am is watching something that doesn't exist. This is just a story in our mind. And to make this and I love all of you and everyone shared things that were perfect, but the one thing that I find that, and I think the spirit pulls me away from is when people are extreme. Any extreme behavior, whether you're an artist, I'm an artist, but any extreme cuts you off from the line of, to me, it's another egoic way of saying, stop, I don't want the flow. Because the flow is carried through us by not blocking it at all, by not saying, well, that was for me and other people didn't have that. So therefore, this was my dream. When I was 10 years old, no, 7, I told my parents I was going to have an art school. When I hit my 20s, I had an art school and it was successful for many, many years. So I could say, yeah, that soul's plan is mine. But what difference does it really make, guys? Because the person is still irrelevant. And yet it's relevant in this story that we're in now. But we all are being led perfectly. That's one thing I know. There's not one human on this planet that's wrong. So maybe when Regis was sharing, for me, I hear his clarity. It's the clarity that's coming through me. And maybe Lynn's is different, but the clarity through Lynn isn't wrong. Everybody is doing exactly what they need to do. But it's all about a love or a call for love and accepting, because being right is, from the course, that's like the worst thing we can do. Like I could say to you, well, look at me. I'm a special girl because I had all these things before I found the course. And yet there was nothing special about it. It could have been a fluke. Who the heck knows? Because I know nothing. But I really don't love, and I don't like anything extreme. Art school was like that. When an extreme teacher came on and told me what I needed to do, what was right, what was wrong, I would say, who says? Because that's just the truth. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. And yeah, it's just pointing out the individual nature of each of us as believing that we're something separate from our source and something that was separate from each other. And we do have this individual nature that is the character, the story. And it's not even our individual nature, as you point out. We're watching a movie about a character, and we're thinking we are the character in the movie. And we think that other people are characters in the movie as well. And, they might not even be in the same movie. They they might be seeing a completely different movie than what I'm seeing, and completely different. And in fact, they are. They're seeing their own story from their own point of view, and it is completely different than my story from my point of view. That's that's just it. No two people have the same experience. So, anybody else have any thoughts that they'd like to share right now, or anything they'd like to bring up?
Well, we didn't put on our book chapter 15 and 16, and we only have till 12:30, so we could do something like that.
Yeah, I would definitely do that if
Well, it's what anybody wants, because I don't care what we do. I mean, I like the manual too. I think the manual has so many things that are just rich because, the generosity, the patience, these are the skills that I have to still develop too. They're just, it's certainly it's like growing up as a child. It takes time. This does too, even though there's no time. So.
well, yeah, and that's the kind of what that thing I was reading from the manual for teachers was saying. This is it's inevitable that we're going to be there, but it also says God's will in everything, but seems to take time in the working out. That's it. It just seems to take time in the working out. It doesn't really take time at all, because how could it take something that doesn't exist? But we're experiencing it as uh, something that it takes a long, 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 forever and forever. Uh, it doesn't. It just takes right now, right now, right now. And again, the little, when they ask, why did the tiny mad idea happen? And Jesus says, why is it happening now? Why are you doing it now? That's all you have to ask is, why am I doing it now? Not why did it happen a long time ago? Because now I have absolutely a choice. Now I have absolutely the ability to just stop. So so why not just stop? Why continue to go into the story? But of course, the mind of Lynn here says, but the story is so important. The story is so compelling. The story makes me feel alive. The story makes me feel loved. The story, what are we getting out of the story? And once we figure out what it is that we're getting out of the story and ask the question, is this really what I want to see? Is this really the world I want to experience? And, once we answer that question, which I think, most of them would say, no, I don't want to experience a world where I'm in pain and suffering. Go look at the last unanswered question. That's what it's all about. Is, do I want to have everything? Do I want to have a world where everything is love and everything is joy? Uh, Only ask the question, do I want to see what I denied? Because it's the truth. Do I want to see the love I denied, the God that I denied, the brother that I denied? Do I want to see what really is with them? Because that's the truth. And if I want the truth, then that's what I want to see. So anyway, we are on chapter 15. The Holy Instant, in the section is called The End of Doubt. And I think we read this paragraph last week, but we didn't really discuss it. So um, uh, I would wonder if anybody would like to read chapter 4 of text chapter 15, section 2. I think this is the last one we did.
I can read.
Great. Thank you, Mickey.
Okay. You do not realize how much you have misused your brothers by seeing them as sources of ego support. As a result, they witness to the ego in your perception and seem to provide reasons for not letting it go. Yet they are far stronger and much more compelling witnesses for the Holy Spirit, and they support his strength. It is therefore your choice whether they support the ego or the Holy Spirit in you, and you will recognize which you have chosen by their reactions. A son of God who has been released through the Holy Spirit in a brother is always recognized. He cannot be denied. If you remain uncertain, it is only because you have not given complete release. And because of this, you have not given a single instant completely to the Holy Spirit. For when you have, you will be sure you have. You will be sure because the witness to him will speak so clearly of him that you will hear and understand. You will doubt until you hear one witness whom you have wholly released through the Holy Spirit, and they will doubt and then you will doubt no more. So I'd like to go back to that first line. If you could scroll up a little in. Thank you. You do not realize how much you have misused your brother by seeing them as sources of ego support. We had an incredible healing at the retreat when one person was having a little bit of a meltdown and another person tried to go up and, kind of prop them up. And she said, do not throw the ego a lifeline. And I thought that was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. It was like, no, do not comfort me. You are comforting the personality, and I'm trying to drop it. And it might look hard and it might look a little uncomfortable, but do not throw it a lifeline because I'm trying to get rid of it. And that hit me so hard. It's like, what? And, it's what I was going on about last week before with the truly helpful prayer. What is really helpful? And I got a big dose of it in witnessing that interaction. We don't know what being helpful is. And she knew right then do not prop up my ego. Do not prop up the personality. It was an incredibly beautiful thing to watch. And I learned a ton. It was worth the entire 5 days and whatever money I spent just to witness that. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this paragraph. It's perfect. I can't believe I got to read that because it was perfect. Thanks.
Oh man, I love that, Mickey. And yeah, that I really want to know about that retreat because it sounds like it must have been really, really good, cathartic for you for sure. Um, but yes, this is where people get so confused that, they think, if you don't throw the ego a lifeline, then you're not being empathetic. And there are places where you can do this and other places where you can't do it. If you are in a group of people who are, saying, I want the truth, I want the peace of God, I want nothing but the truth, I want to drop this story, I want to drop this world, this ego, whatever, um, then you darn well know, if that's what you're asking for, then, you don't want to reject it when it's handed to you. You don't want to say, well, you didn't help me when I was crying and I feel bad now because you don't have any empathy. That's the exact opposite. Empathy is joining with your brother in the place where they are and refusing to believe the story, refusing to believe the story. And if a person has that much open mind and wherewithal to say something like what that person said, then you know that they are honestly willing to do the work and wanting nothing but the truth. And you know other people may think that that's not kind, but what would be the difference then? And as you told it, I was thinking it was the person themselves who was crying who said, "Don't throw the ego a lifeline." But what if it had been you who said, "Hey, I'm not going to throw the ego a lifeline"? Would that have been rude? Would that have been unloving? Would that have been non-empathetic? Or would that have been honest and loving and giving that person exactly what they needed to hear to see that it was just the ego that was going through all that. I don't know, what do you think?
That's a really interesting question. I think that we go with our gut and try to be as loving and kind as we possibly can. And I think it's up to the person who's having the meltdown to say, thank you, I really understand, but let's not prop up the ego right now. It's a fine line, and you really, I think that's when you pause and really ask Holy Spirit, does this person need a lifeline right now or not?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about, it's so individualized. And she was really brave about it. And braver than I could have been. But it was a lesson for me. And hopefully I'll get to that point where I can say thank you so much, but this personality and the ego mind doesn't need any comfort right now.
Right. Yes. And for me, that's kind of how my response generally is. I don't need your sympathy. Be straight with me. And if I'm over here having a meltdown, because I'm believing something my ego is telling me about you or the world, then tell me, slap me in the face and say, snap out of it. One of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite movies, snap out of it. You came here for this. You asked me to help you. Why are you why do you want to go into, that pity party? And of course you could say, yeah, if you want to go there, that's fine. I'm not going to be here to co-sign your insanity. I'll be
Mhm.
here to hold your hand and to love you, but I'm never going to believe your story.
Yeah.
I'm always going to believe the story that we are the holy sons of God and we have the ability to go beyond this life and this world. And you're just the same as me. I think this is something I've talked about before, and I don't really have clearly formed thoughts about it, but to me, it is an insult to a person to believe their pitiful story and to go into sorrow and grief because of it. It's like saying, I feel so bad because you're so weak. I feel bad because you can't take it. I feel bad because I see you as being a pitiful being. And the reality of it is, nobody is a pitiful being. Every one of us is strong enough to meet uh, the story that we came here for. We, do you think any one of us is less than any other of us? Even a child. Children, go through horrific things. I was a child, I went through horrific things. Do I think that I was just a pitiful creature when that happened? Do I think that that I had no power at that time? That I didn't have the power of my own mind to remind me of the truth of who I was, which I did. I knew that those things that were happening had nothing to do with me. Those things that were happening had nothing to do with who I was or what I was going to become or how I was going to be in the future. Nothing. But if you saw it, some other person saw it, they'd say, oh, you poor little thing. I have to save you from your experience. I have to save you because and for the most part, people who fall into that kind of thinking feel worse than the person who's in the situation. I never felt bad about my situation because I knew it didn't have anything to do with me. Knew it without a doubt that I was beyond all these things. I mean, there may have been some times when I felt victimized, but for the most part, I felt powerful. And, I used to have, I used to, this is terrible, but I'm sure I'm not the only one. I used to sit and think about I had suicidal ideation all the time. I just thought, if I, could just die, that, that things would be better. But I would then go into a whole ideation about my funeral and the people who came who were so sad and all the bad things that they were thinking about. Oh, we let this terrible thing happen, and I reveled in their sorrow. I reveled in their upset. This is like a 6-year-old kid who, is sitting thinking about, I'm gonna kill myself and they're all gonna feel bad. That is not unusual. That is not unusual. And so so so
Hey,
uh
Lynn, do you remember our conversation on the phone the other day at all?
yeah.
Okay. Because I just want to say that we all want to preach what we want, but we all go in and out. And I don't like people suffering. And I guess I believe in suffering. So what? And I'm sure
Yeah.
you do. After our conversation the other day, we both believed in that. So what I'm trying to say is what I want to bring forth in a group like this is honesty. We can all say we all know the truth. That's why Suzanne came in the room that day, and she doesn't necessarily, she's going to come back, once in a while, but we have to own what we still need to work through. When people suffer, I feel sad. Now, do I go and hug them? Sometimes, sometimes not. But you know what? I'll give you an example. When Jonathan was on drugs, it was the worst point. And I walked the dog and I was crying. I was with somebody. The light came so big, the awareness alive. Now, do you really think that I am presence cares what the Course really says? It doesn't. We are waking up organically. And so the consistency is when I no longer believe in suffering, I'll keep quiet. Because I know just from our conversation the other day that you do believe still in suffering. So I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just trying to bring forth honesty. Let's get honest. We all want to wake up. We all want the hell out of this world because it's insane.
I'm not
However,
sure what would be embarrassing to me about. Of course, I see what I think is suffering. I said it earlier. I see little children
right, but we all
starving.
know what the book says.
And
All I care about now is the experience because I'm no longer the words. If you listen to my teaching today on parents and children, I'm really getting so honest and realizing that spirit is moving me in places now to go deeper into the silence, into the quiet. However, I will not lie and say that I was thrilled about the election because, the other friend of ours left that might be on the other side. And I will not lie about any of it because I am working through the dream. I don't want to be this sage, the great whatever I just want to be Sharon who's waking up. And that's why I'm bringing you into a place where we had like a half-hour conversation that was very much more of a people conversation. But let's always remember that the book is still a book, and we're going to have times when we feel life is unfair. So what? You think that's going to block you? Nothing blocks the I am presence. I can tell you that.
yeah,
I hope that didn't hurt you. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I'm just trying to get
no,
clarity.
it doesn't affect me at all because I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well,
I was saying that,
we had a conversation about certain people, and we were seeing them as people, and all of that is honesty. I
but
still
this is
see
not, I'm
people.
not being honest right now when I say that
No, when you
I
say that,
recognize that I didn't have actual suffer, and that we think other people's suffering is so much worse than ours, or so much worse than we can handle, that
no,
we
that's
think
not what I'm
people are
saying. I'm
weak
just
and
saying that
small.
I'm getting a little
Do you
bit.
think that's not honest?
What I feel is that for me, I'm moving in a different direction where I just want to be authentic. I want to be able to cry on here. I want to be able to do whatever I want. And if people can't accept that, then I just because I'm with spirit 24/7. But the preaching to me is necessary to a point, like what Mickey shared about that woman. That was for her, the woman, and it was beautiful. I don't know that I could do that, and who cares if I can't? Because why we're waking up, the I am presence could care less what we believe. It's happening it's just an organic process. That's my experience, and that's something I am living through. I realized that I had to go and work on the lower chakras, because but the top part of me has had this awakening. But if you think I had anything to do with it, I didn't. I didn't do anything special. I didn't preach a book. I just lived organically. And I've always been honest about how I feel. I used to make people upset when I would cry about my son. And it's like today I would say, I'll leave then. Because if I want to cry, Lori shared the other day, when her sister dies, she'll cry hysterical. So will I. So will I. I'm an emotional person. And that's all I'm saying. I had to say that, Lynn, because I have to just say that when we share, let's share from experience, because the experience of waking up is not simple.
Well,
It
I just
looks,
say I don't understand what your
well,
opinion
because you
of
were
me
saying
is.
if somebody puts their arms around you and feels bad, you don't like it. That's
Did I say
okay.
that? Did I say that?
Well, it
Did
doesn't
somebody in
matter.
this room, did anybody in this room say that? That I don't like being comforted if I'm crying?
Well, that's what
I
it sounded
didn't
like.
say that. I said I can handle my own emotions. I am not broken by things that happen to me. I'm
Okay.
not broken by things that happened to me when I was a child. That, and I can't be broken by it, and I know that. That's my experience. And if you were hearing me say that I didn't want people to feel, I don't want people to feel bad. I don't want you to feel bad from me.
I don't think you can help that. People are organically egos. So they're going to cry when you die. They're going to cry. And that's just part of their experience. But there's nothing wrong with emotions. There's nothing wrong with any of this. It's all part of the dream. There's the dark and the light, and we want to merge them together. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Karen, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I was listening on the radio, so I said, wow, this is a great conversation. Let me jump in. I love this paragraph. And what really jumps out at me in this paragraph is starting at sentence 9, where he says, if you remain uncertain, it is only because you have not given complete release. And because of this, you have not given a single instant completely to the Holy Spirit. Wow, this whole book talks about this. That's all this to me. This whole book is about that. And I'm just going to go really quickly. I know Sharon just talked about, and it's not about the book, but these is just what
Yeah,
jumped
that's a
out at
good
me.
one, but I can't say that I've always been there.
No,
But
let me just finish. Let me just finish.
Okay.
So in chapter 25, the Justice of Heaven, he says, be certain any answer to a problem the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. The Holy Spirit's problem solving is the way in which the problem ends. So the problem is there's one problem, the one problem that I believe that I could be separate from God, the one problem that I'm not loving right now. What the one other quotes come to me, I can't help it, but the quote that I think is by Saint Augustine, love and do what you will. I'm afraid of love right now. There's something that's scaring me right now, that I'm afraid of love, because that's what usually holds me back. Now, the situation that you guys were talking about in this, the experiences you were talking about, what came to my mind, that's why I came on here, was a few years ago, we were at my aunt's for Christmas, and my daughter loves wigs, so she brought a whole box of wigs, and we were all trying wigs on, and we were just having fun, taking pictures with wigs on, all different wigs, and it was so much fun. Well, my granddaughter at the time, she didn't get the wig she wanted, so she had a little hissy fit and went into the corner and started crying. She was probably about 10 at the time, and of course, what did I want to do? I wanted to run to her. I wanted to run to her, and I wanted to tell her it's okay, and we're going to take turns. You'll get that wig back. I felt so bad for this child. My sister stopped me. She said, Karen, don't go over there. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. And my sister was right at that time. The most loving thing to do in that moment was leave her alone. Let her cry. It's not about the wig. It wasn't even about the wig. And we all know this. It's never about what we think the problem is. It's not that. We know the Course of Miracles. We know the metaphysics, and we're not supposed to live the metaphysics, but we hold it close to our vest. We know the truth. And to me, it depends, like Mickey said, it depends on the situation. It always depends on the situation. What she shared, when the person said, don't prop up the ego, that was perfect for that moment. But that's not always perfect for every moment. So we love and do what we will. Love and do what you will. And there are times when we need to be comforted or comfort someone. And this is telling us right here that if you remain uncertain, it's only because you have not given complete release to the Holy Spirit. And when I'm thinking with the ego, I want to rescue. When I'm thinking with the Holy Spirit, I just want to love. And whatever form that comes out is perfect. Thanks.
Look,
Thank you, thank
I'm
you.
sorry if I sounded like angry, but what I'm trying to say is basically what Karen just said, that wherever we are, we're perfect. But when my little grandson is 3 crying, I don't run up and hug him. But you know what? I always say to him, I understand. And he knows what that means. That's all we ever want is understanding. Because we're afraid. I'm going through awakening now in a little deeper way, and I know things are coming up, but I also hear people, like why I was so excited about Regis today is because I guess because I identify with the way he sees these things, like, just the honesty, like why in the world would a book, I mean, the book is rich, but the book's between me and spirit. The mighty companions come along to join with me. But when I'm crying or anything, let me be because I'm you and you're me. My cries are your cries. There's no separation. So everything that Karen shared, but when like Eckhart Tolle has said that when he sees people that he used a word like it's not because he's on the highest level, I would think. And he was basically saying that it's not productive to see them as people. But if I'm not there yet, then that's okay too, is what I'm saying. I just want the gentleness and the patience because I love intensely, and I feel right now that I am going through a deepening. And as I'm going through it, sometimes I'm guided not to come in the room, and sometimes I'm guided to, because it's hard when these energies start coming up because you just don't wake up. And if you do, then good for you. But I don't know anyone that hasn't gone through pain waking up. So that's all.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this has been a great time today, talking about all these different things. And we're having Rev Wayne coming up here in a minute to be reading from Corinne's book, From Anxiety to Love. And this is, we're all walking each other home, as Ram Dass says, or I forget the name of the band, but that's where you are is where I am. I can't be walking you home if I'm somewhere else. So where you are is where I am. And I'm just seeing it a different way. I'm seeing it from a different direction. And yeah, sometimes, the heart of Lynn says, go hug that baby, go hug that person, go tell them it's going to be okay. Go tell them they're okay. That's the heart of Lynn. The mind of Lynn says, no matter how bad I feel for them, I know that they are no different than me. And I know that they will be through this. They'll forget about it tomorrow. When things get better, they won't it won't be a blink in their eye, and I'll still be remembering it and feeling bad. I'll still be remembering it and feeling bad because I've put myself into a situation where I'm identifying with them rather than with the holy being that they are. So that's, I mean, that's what we have to remember. You know, the person may be having a hard time, but the whole holy being, the Christ, is doing great. So yeah. And Karen has put, be there as presence, not a person. That's it. And so anyway, thank you all so very much
I just
for
want to tell
joining
Lori
us.
I will not be there on Thursday because I'm going to